Morning folks, we are back on a garden project. We're going to be laying another sandstone path. So let me show you what we've got planned. So if you've been around on the channel for a little while, you'll probably know that about 5 years ago I put in these paths down the garden and along to the patio, which are really nice, one of my favourite projects, and they are using sandstone sets, which are almost like a flat cobble. You know, a cobble's very deep, but these are about anywhere between 25 and 40 mil thick. We're going to be putting the rest of them in because I bought probably a pallet more than I needed. What I'm going to start by doing is laying out some string lines. That's going to give us the outer side of the path, and then the rest of it's just infill, so that's easy enough. So this is the reference to that concrete. As you can see, I've troweled it and it's fairly straight, but I don't want to have the whole path going in and out because up there, about 3 meters up, it goes in a little bit. So we're going to run a string line from this path here where we're tying in up to the other end, and then we'll go off that, and then we can measure the, I think it's 93 centimeters of width, which equates to the same as this, which is the 2 outers and 3 infill. Right, next thing I'm going to do is make up our slurry, and this is not witchcraft, but it is probably one of the most popular questions on the channel from all of the patio videos and everything we've done over the years. It's basically just a really simple way to get a strong bond between whatever you're laying, the stone or slab, and your mortar bed. Right, I've got that first run all the way in now, so I'm going to measure across the width of the overall path. So where it kind of curves off and joins that path, I'm going to sort that bit out in a minute. I'm going to start on this third one and then work that way. Right, hopefully you saw from that time lapse how we got on that first stretch. Just had a bite to eat, so we're hopefully going to get it all done today. We'll see. So the first section is coming off the old section. Just got to do a little curve in here. So a load of cutting to do there. Once done that, it's a straight run. And I'm putting that camber in like we did on this one. We're up to the next turning point, which is this section here, which is just going to come around the side of the lawn. Not having right angles is far easier for maintaining the lawn as well and mowing. But I've moved on to this section here now, and what I've decided to do is, rather than do the single row either side to border it, it was going to end up being set in under our overhang here. So instead what I've done is decided to not have that row, and instead when we face the slab underneath of the workshop with the natural stone, that will kind of create the borders. Right, so we got on well yesterday. There's about a quarter of it left to do, and then we need to give it a good clear down. What I did to start with is I've just gone back through and raked out any of the mortar that kind of pushed up between, a bit like when you're laying tile, you don't want it to fill where you're going to grout. So in the same way here, where I had a couple of mixes that were a little bit too wet, when you bed in the stones, it can push up between. So ideally you don't want that. But we've got everything cleared out now. It's only been down 12 hours or so, so it's easy enough to just rake out, and then it'll be ready for our kind of resin pointing that we're going to do in a couple of days' time. First up though, we'll get another mix on, get a head start on that. So the mix I'm using is, give or take, 5 to 1, 6 to 1 sharp sand to cement. Apart from that, it's fairly straightforward. That's going to be our bedding mix. The reason for that is sharp sand's pretty strong. It's kind of more angular rather than kind of building sand's a bit round and smooth. So always sharp sand. That's going to give us probably only about 30 mil or so of bed down here, which is just about okay. Right, I've got another slurry mix made up, so that's ready for dipping before we bed them in. What I want to do now is cut probably another 10 or 12 of the halves. So these are 200 sets. So we're going to take them at 100 mil. If you were doing it properly, you'd actually end up having probably about 90 mil and a bit of waste, but that's almost impossible to do by hand. You'd have to just cut them. So this is easy enough, and it still gives that sort of ribbon edge to it. Not normally that easy. Now I'm just using a regular claw hammer to just kind of fettle the edge here. You can see the rest of them, where they come out from the quarry, they are sort of angled inwards, which is what we want for the way we kind of bed them in and point them. So our relatively straight cut, we're just going to chip that back a little bit. It doesn't really matter too much underneath, but this edge leaves quite a sharp edge, so we're just going to knock that to round it over. Right, that's kind of as wet as we want it. We don't want to be able to squeeze any water out of it. We want it to kind of ball, but not be too sloppy, because otherwise we have the issues, like I was saying, where you bed them in and it squishes up and it makes a bit of a mess. This is all about what we need, especially because we use that slurry mix. That'll really bond it to this. You can see how much everything comes to life, the cedar and the stone, when it gets wet. What I need to do now is give it a few days, make sure we've raked out any of the bits and bobs that are in there, and then we'll be moving on to pointing. That will happen in another video. But let me give you a bit of a walk around and show you where, as far as we've got about 15 sets left, possibly enough to finish off a little section. This is the end of the old path. The idea was we were going to do an extension, and that was going to come out to this grass level, and we were going to move things around. But for now, the decking comes down. We might just try and squeeze out the last little bit to fill in that. Kids have already made themselves at home. Finished off this little corner. Then down here, it's actually lucky that we decided not to start off by having an edging row either side, because we would have run short of sets and we wouldn't have enough. So I'm still toying with the idea of putting this stonework under there. I think it will look good. It's just a pain that it all happens to take probably far more time than I imagine, probably a day and a half to get even just that amount. Rabbits everywhere. We're finally not hoarding masses of sandstone like we have been for the last 5 years, stacking them, moving them, getting in the way. They're down and they are used up. I've just spotted the world's hugest moth. Have a look at this. Look at the size of that. That thing is huge. I've just put it on Instagram. Apparently it might be a privet moth. When that thing takes off tonight, it's probably going to sound like a Chinook. Waka waka. Anyway, right, I digress. Nature is taking over here. I'm bound to get asked. So the sandstone sets are from Stone Market. We bought them about 5 years ago. I assume they're still a product. They were called Manna, I think, at the time. And like you may have seen during this video, when they're wet, or if you choose to have a sealer on them, they look pretty colourful, pretty nice. Or you can leave them natural and they kind of weather down. Then when the rain comes, it's a bit of variation. So that's just personal preference. But with good quality stone, there's no reason to seal it. They dry out so quick, and that's one of the big telltales when you're picking a quality stone. When I was doing that little crash course training bit with Stone Market, we had a whole variety of quality stones. The ones that dry out in minutes, they are the ones you want to be looking for. We've used some other bits of sandstone, some saddle stones and things like that in the past. They saturate and they just do not dry. Whatever the weather, they'll just sit there like a sponge, and of course then you get freeze thaw and all sorts of nastiness. So the quicker they dry, the better. Hence why we haven't bothered with sealing them. We just don't find the need. But anyway, that's for another topic, for another day. Anything else that I haven't covered, stick it down below and hopefully we can cover that. Next job will be to point these up, but we'll leave it for then. Thank you for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.